Dillian the Body Snatcher White here. It's a champ. Big up to Sporting Icon. Subscribe. Otherwise, I might pay you guys a visit.
So with news that Alexander Povetkin has now been ordered to negotiate with Anthony Joshua to fight him next by the WBA, that would now officially rule him out of any kind of fight with Dillian Whyte. Now, of course, Team Povetkin said no, they're not going to fight Dillian Whyte anyway, even after originally saying yes. So that was always going to be a bit of a stumbling block anyway, and pretty much confirmed that that fight wasn't going to happen. But the IBF have ordered a mandatory final eliminator between Dillian Whyte and Kubrat Pulev. And Dillian Whyte posted only yesterday, I believe it was, that he now has the option of which one is it going to be, Povetkin or Pulev. So with the news of the WBA, it now looks like he's going to be fighting Kubrat Pulev. That's a fight that is dangerous, very, very high risk and very little reward for Dillian Whyte, because it's like Pulev, he's only ever lost one fight, but Pulev is stupidly tough, and you all know about his jab. His jab is punishing. I mean, he dropped Dimitrenko with it, right? And that's how he dominates fights. And you know, he was doing well using that jab against Klitschko as well before he got stopped himself, which is his only loss on the record. And he's done it with so many other fighters. Now, it's not just that he has a jab and that's it. He always follows it up with some big overhand rights, always. So he never throws the right hand on its own. He will throw the left hand first. It's like a natural instinct for him to do it, even when he didn't really need to at times. But he's very, very tough. But of course, a lot of people don't rate him because they don't really watch him, because he fights under the radar. He doesn't go to the big events or anything like that. You know, he fights you know, here, there and everywhere, and against opposition that are semi-decent but not really going to get you excited. I mean, Kevin Johnson, who really wants that one? Tony Thompson, and you know, things like that. And he is a big knockout artist, but I mean, he does have a lot of points wins, but if you look at some of the fights, the referee should have stopped the fight beforehand and awarded a Pulev knockout victory. So this is a fight that's dangerous for Dillian Whyte. It's a fight that I believe Dillian Whyte wins, of course. But again, it's almost one of those situations where if Dillian Whyte was to take it, what's he really going to gain by winning? People will say, oh, well, Pulev was old, he got stopped by Vladimir Klitschko. That's pretty much what it is. And these are the people who don't really know Pulev, if that makes sense. They don't really know what he's about, that he's crazy dangerous. He's ranked high across all the sanctioned bodies for a very good reason, because he's tough as nails. But what does Dillian Whyte gain? You can say, well, he gets the IBF mandatory to fight Joshua, but he can fight Joshua anyway at some point, because you know, he works with Eddie Hearn. Joshua wants the rematch with Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte wants a rematch with Anthony Joshua. Being a mandatory isn't going to make any difference. You could probably say, well, he'll get the 25% split, but he'll probably get that anyway, right? I'm sure Joshua will give him that, maybe a bit more, just to secure the fight. So it's almost a pointless one, but it's a good name on the resume. That's the only thing I can come up with. He'll probably get paid quite well, I suppose, but you know, Dillian will fight anybody, and it's not always about the money. I mean, of course, it has to be to a point because it's business, right? But outside of having a good name on the resume, there's not too much to gain from it. But as I said, Pulev is a crazy tough opponent. He's stupidly tough. If you haven't watched Pulev, go watch some of his fights and you'll see exactly what I mean. He is a punishing fighter. He's not the fastest in the world, but he has a very punishing jab. I mean, you know, he took down Dimitrenko with a jab, you know, and, you know, he's wobbled so many people as well, because, as I said, he always follows up with a right, and he's very, very difficult to hit. Now, this fight could be a war if Pulev turns up and fights how he can fight, or he could turn into Robert Helenius. We know how Dillian Whyte's going to fight. He's going to come forward and try and trade and try and knock him out. That's exactly what Dillian Whyte does. But Pulev, he may turn out to be a crazy tough opponent who will come forward too, which is what he does do, or he could turn into a Robert Helenius, because I'm not convinced that he wants to be mandatory for Anthony Joshua. I'm not convinced that he wants to fight Joshua, because he turned it down on many occasions before, and when he had his opportunity, he what, he was injured. Was it his right shoulder or bicep? I forget what it was now. But that was no surprise, because he was umming and ahhing about fighting him anyway when the IBF ordered the mandatory position. So I'm not too convinced that Pulev even wants that fight now. Maybe he's just in all this just for a payday now, and just to try and rack up some wins. Maybe the Klitschko loss has psychologically scarred him. I have no idea, really. I don't. Or maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe he really does want Anthony Joshua, but he wanted to become mandatory, and the injury was an unfortunate thing. Maybe. But against Dillian Whyte, as I said, it's a very, very tough, interesting fight. But it's a fight that Dillian Whyte will get very little praise from outside of the UK and Bulgaria now, of course. So Americans who will look at that, obviously people know that Dillian Whyte is trying to get Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder's been avoiding him for the best part of a year now, doing everything they can to not fight him. But I don't know, it just seems that he's not going to get any kind of credit for it. So I don't really see the point of the fight. But for me, as a boxing fan, and a lot of you guys who know Pulev will know that Dillian Whyte defeating Pulev is one hell of a scalp on the record. But either way, or maybe now they could negotiate now with Deontay Wilder. Maybe now, because with Pulev being ordered the IBF mandatory, it's not like Dillian Whyte has to take it, because originally it was Dominic Breazeale, and Dominic Breazeale pulled himself out. Rumours that he could be fighting Deontay Wilder. But maybe now they can arrange for Deontay Wilder against Dillian Whyte, because it looks like the WBA are forcing Joshua into a Povetkin fight. Unless, of course, they agree to the unification, which, again, I'll say it again, they don't have to. But if they do, then obviously Wilder and Joshua can fight. But if not, if they say, no, you are going to be fighting Povetkin no matter what, then Wilder can take a fight in between, right? So while Joshua is fighting Povetkin, we could have Wilder against Dillian Whyte. But, with a guarantee straight after, in the contract even, that he fights Anthony Joshua end of the year. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, of course. But more than likely, it's going to be Wilder against Breazeale, right? But anyway, there's a few things up in the air right now. And while I do like the Whyte versus Pulev fight, I do see it as almost a pointless fight, as in outside financial and a scalp on the record. What's he really gaining? He's risking his #1 position with the WBC, when really, if it can be done, go fight Dominic Breazeale and get the WBC to officially order it as a mandatory position, because it would be better long term if Dillian Whyte fights Deontay Wilder, gets that belt, and then goes and fights Anthony Joshua for undisputed. He'll get more money and, of course, a world champion. So that's just my thoughts. You drop me yours, and I will catch you all in the next video. See you later.